Welcome to this continued conversation with community partners. Today we have Joe Monastero with the Texas Restaurant Association. He's going to tell us a little bit about how restaurants have been impacted during this COVID pandemic and closures, and also what we can do as residents to go to our favorite restaurants again. Joe, thank you for joining us. And I just kind of want to jump in. Can you tell us a little bit about the Texas Restaurant Association?
Yeah, absolutely, Allison. And thank you very much for having me this morning. There's certainly quite a lot that's been going on right now in this crisis. First, just a quick background. Texas Restaurant Association is the state restaurant association for the 50,000 plus restaurants in the state of Texas. That's obviously a number from before the COVID pandemic began. Those 50,000 restaurants also count for 1.4 million employees. And so we represent the second largest private employer in Texas, and nearly 70 billion in gross sales every year. The restaurant industry has been one of the hardest hit during the COVID pandemic. The minor changes, things that the governor's office has also provided to allow us to continue to operate through takeout and delivery have certainly helped. And we're very appreciative of how cooperative the governor's office and TABC and the comptroller have been, but there's only so much that can save when you've cut off the access to dining rooms and things like that. And it's hard to believe it's only been 5 to 6 weeks that this has all been going on. It feels, I think, in many cases like months or even a year. But the impact of COVID-19, as of our last data collection and analysis, is that more than 700,000 jobs, so more than half, have been either furloughed or laid off. There is at least a $4 billion impact to the Texas economy. We have unfortunately lost independent restaurants throughout the state forever. Anywhere at this point between 2 and 8% of independently owned restaurants have closed and will never reopen. There's another third that have temporarily closed and just said it's not worth doing takeout or delivery, or they didn't have the ability to convert their operations to do so. And then of the others remaining, probably about half have reopened under the 25% capacity. And working very closely with the governor's office, we have a series of protocols in place that allow restaurants to reopen to make sure that it's safe for their customers. It will increase from 25% to 50%, hopefully halfway through the month, as we watch and see kind of how does the curve trend as we've been doing this. But it's certainly a singularly unique time. And I was born into the restaurant industry. My family owned a restaurant for 55 years. This is in my blood. And I can tell you, living through 9/11, living through the recession of 2008, there is nothing that compares to what is happening right now and how it's impacting our industry.
Oh, so very true. I know we've watched it just as residents, and it's been tough to see these restaurateurs that we know and that have been our favorite places just struggling so much. I met you when I reached out to you that first week restaurants closed, and I was trying to call anyone at the TRA, help. What do local cities do? How can we be helpful on a grand scale to all of our local Farmers Branch restaurateurs? And you gave me some great information about the Texas Relief Grant that y'all were doing. So then I gave that to our restaurateurs. They were first in line to apply for that grant. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be, your grant?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was within a matter of a few days of all of this starting. And we've been going practically 24/7 now for what seems like the world's longest marathon you weren't given a chance to stretch for beforehand. But it was very obvious to us that while many charities and nonprofits had stepped up to assist the employees that had lost their jobs or been furloughed, there really wasn't anything in place for the restaurants themselves. And so we're very proud that the Texas Restaurant Association and the James Beard Foundation are really the only two that are out there right now doing things for the restaurateurs. Our opinion is this: if you help the restaurant at any time, not just during the pandemic, but when restaurants are in a good place and when things are headed in a positive direction, it helps the employee as well. So it's kind of when it's good for all of us, it's good for all of us. And when it's not good for them, it's not good for anyone. And so we created on March 23rd the Texas Restaurant Relief Fund as an initiative of our Education Foundation, which is a part of the work that we do. We have a completely separate 501c3 nonprofit that is really the workforce development arm of the TRA. And it's been in existence for now more than 26 years, has helped high school students, has helped various different adult populations in training and restaurants to secure their staff and really expand and scale. And so through that, we were able to very quickly get out this initiative, and the Texas Restaurant Relief Fund to date has raised $2.2 million out of a $10 million goal. So just crossing the 20% mark and looking forward to continuing to push forward. We have given out more than 400 grants. Many of these are unrestricted grants that give just cash in hands to the restaurants to keep their operations going and to support their employees. And that's really the two components to the fund. Is we want them to have the money to help themselves, but also to help the employees. And so some of them have used it to keep people working. Others have taken it and distributed it out to the employees that they have furloughed, just to give them a little bit of extra, cash in hand. And it's really been great to see. We've also had some corporations who've reached out to us, partnering with us to give special grants that go one step further. And I think it's no secret to everybody that when there's a crisis, restaurants are always there for the community. If you think about Hurricane Harvey is probably one of the more recent examples, or the shootings in El Paso, we have an initiative called Restaurants Respond. And it's where the restaurants in the local area or throughout the state help each other to be there for the community. So whether it's feeding first responders or it's feeding victims, they're there. And in this situation, the restaurants are the victims too. And so these grants that came in from a couple corporations, including ExxonMobil and Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas, have allowed us to not just give money to the restaurants, but also give them certain funds that were earmarked to facilitate giving individually packaged meals to those first responders, whether it's police, fire, or medical. And it's been great to see the response of how excited the restaurants were, not just to receive these funds, but to know that they could then use them to do what they're so used to doing when there's a crisis situation like this. You're absolutely correct. We got quite a few grant applications from LaGrange. More than a dozen restaurants have benefited from the Texas Restaurant Relief Fund grants in LaGrange. And it's something we're going to continue doing. It'll probably be the better part of this year and into next year too, because if you think about it, where we are today is kind of the start. We're pivoting to now reopen, but reopen doesn't just flick a light switch and life's back to normal. We've got a long road ahead to rebuild and to help these restaurants. And when you think about the culinary centers in Dallas and in Austin and the Riverwalk in San Antonio, to have the beauty of these restaurants and the independence remain, we all have to band together. And we've had great support from a lot of the national chains as well. We have Whataburger participating in the Blue Cross Blue Shield initiative alongside more than 200 independent restaurants. And they're a Texas-based business. They're part of our community as well. So it's been great to see everyone band together and support each other during this time.
That's so true. And that is a good point. We usually ask restaurateurs to support local fundraisers for the schools and whatnot. So really, this is our chance to support the restaurateurs that have always stepped up and been there for us in our local community. So that is a great point. And I feel like they need orders at the end of the day. So whether it's takeout, delivery, however, this is our chance to make sure that we support those people that have always been there for us. And so tell me a little bit about what y'all are seeing as far as different best practices, things that might be changing as people go into a restaurant now in the 25% capacity, or even if it ramps up to 50. How do you think those changes will look to an average customer?
I think that there's a component that's always been there that maybe people didn't always realize that's going to be a little bit more prevalent. Restaurants are experts in sanitation. In order for a restaurant to have a health license and serve and prepare food safely for its customers, they already operate at a peak level of sanitation. What we worked on as we were seeing that reopening was around the corner, was to put together the Texas Restaurant Promise. And we're very proud of the fact that a lot of the language that was in the governor's order for reopening was lifted directly from the promise. And we couldn't be more appreciative of how collaborative his strike force and the lieutenant governor's task force have been in working with us to put this together and really listen to the industry and hear what, as operators, our restaurants know that they can do to make sure that it's a safe, welcoming environment, that it's still something that is that backdrop in which we live our lives, but that also ensures people feel safe. And so the Texas Restaurant Promise outlines protocols that encompass all of the things in the governor's order and a few other things as well. It's also a two-sided promise. And I think that's something that's really important because yes, there's what restaurants are doing that's very important. But there's also an expectation for restaurateurs on what their customers will do and the personal responsibility that customers will take on in this entire process. I think the biggest change we're going to see moving forward is everyone has to sort of be honest and own their personal hygiene, their personal safety, and the safety of others around them. And so some of the more obvious things that you'll see is more frequent cleaning throughout the shift, we would call it, or throughout the service time that normally would only be done at the beginning or end of a shift. And so the wiping down of high contact surfaces, individual tables being fully cleaned and sanitized in between each seating. This is a standard of sanitation that the restaurants are very used to. It's just the frequency of it is going to be increased in order to make sure that we minimize any risk to the fullest extent possible. You'll see the social distancing. So that could mean that restaurants have removed tables and chairs from their dining room, or it could mean that they have just marked certain tables as not to be sat. If you picture a checkerboard, if you will, some might have a white tablecloth, others might have a black tablecloth, or the chairs have been removed, but they will have denoted in order to keep that minimum 6 foot distance between tables so that when people come in, they see that as visible. There will be sanitation stations so that obviously the encouragement of all customers always is when you come into a restaurant before you eat dinner, just like at home, go to the restroom and wash your hands. But to make it even easier, there'll be sanitizers available at the entrance or at stations throughout the restaurant. There will be staff helping to monitor the social distancing even in the restrooms. So a lot of restaurants have independent restrooms, others don't. So for those that don't, making sure that only one person goes in at a time, or if it's large enough, maybe two. So that's the standard that you'll see. One of the things I think will start to be a little different across the whole state as each of our 254 counties get involved in sort of tweaking things. But I think what's really important and we're very pleased by is that the governor's order on how we reopen is a superseding order above all other civil laws or executive orders. So what the governor says goes. And that's really important because the customer needs to know that whether they're in LaGrange or they're up in Amarillo or they're down in Austin, that it's going to be the same experience for everyone. And the side that we ask of the customers, that piece that's our ask of you in this restaurant promise, is that a customer take on the personal responsibility of not putting others at risk. So if you've been exposed to COVID, continue to use the curbside contactless delivery takeaway option or have delivery to your home. Don't go into a restaurant. Use the sanitizer when you come in. Wear gloves and a mask on your way to the restaurant. But obviously it's a little hard to eat with a mask on, so they understand that. But some restaurants have just asked that you have your mask on until you get to the door, keep it on until you get to your table, take it off, enjoy your meal, put it back on, and head out the front door. That's a really easy way for the customer to play their part in all of this as well. And frankly, if you think you have a fever or any symptoms or anything, smart thing to do is to just stay home. And again, enjoy the delivery or contactless takeout curbside pickup options. I think similarly to 9/11, everyone was sort of working together as a community to police each other in a positive way, not in a fearful or a suspicious way, but just kind of holding everyone accountable. And think some may remember very, very early on, the governor on one of his press conferences was expressing the whole, if you're outside and someone comes walking close to you and they kind of get within that personal space, just say 6 feet as a polite reminder of, my personal space for right now needs to be a little bit wider than normal.
Right.
In that same vein, I think with grace and with compassion, if we all work together, then there's absolutely no reason you can't go back to enjoying being in dining rooms. Certainly as we're going into summer now, before it gets too hot, those who have outside seating, their patios are open and their social distancing is still in place, but you're outside, so you're able to enjoy the experience there too, and it's probably a bit safer. But at the end of the day, it's important that everyone sees what we're doing. It's important that we do what we're doing, but for restaurants, it's really just stepping up what we already do every single day. Because again, we have to be experts in sanitation in order to make sure that it's safe and healthy for you to eat out anytime.
That's such a good point. I guess now we're just more aware, whether you do visual graphics or however you explain it to the customer, of we've already been doing this. Now we're going to do it at a higher level. And now we're going to educate you guys on what we expect from y'all. So yes. So I guess my promise to restaurateurs is I will not go sick or after I've been exposed or whatnot, but I will continue to do takeout and delivery. And I think it's also important to tip if you're doing takeout and delivery, because they can't be open. And that means a waiter or whoever was helping, can get that tip, because you still have the people running out to your car. And before that was the wait staff. And so that's another little thing I think to remember as we make those delivery and orders. So
yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct, Allison. It wasn't always as equally considered mandatory or customary to give a tip when you were doing takeout. Delivery, the tip goes to the delivery guy. But when you're doing curbside takeout, most people would just go in, sign their slip, say thank you, or maybe like leave $1 for the host at the stand that brought them their bag. But the way in which restaurants have been able to keep a lot of their workers employed is by having them help be runners for curbside takeout. And so consider that as you're doing your pickup, that person normally would have made 18 or 20% on what you bought. And certainly right now they're all feeling the pinch. And so a simple customary show of gratitude, like a tip like that, would go a long way for them.
Yeah, definitely. Joe, tell us how local restaurants can get involved with the TRA.
Sure, absolutely. So the State Restaurant Association is made up of 23 individual chapters throughout the state. Farmers Branch, being so close to Dallas, is actually part of our Greater Dallas Restaurant Association chapter. The chapter itself is located within the El Centro Culinary Annex, which is located over on Webb Chapel. And there's so many different ways people can get involved. Certainly right now it feels like we're just sort of stuck in this crisis and it's been lasting forever. But we will come out of this, and there will be a new normal after that. And throughout the year, there are activities. Being a member of our association, it's certainly been important for everyone to see the crisis management and communications and the work we've been doing with the Texas government at all levels, city, county, and state, to ensure the restaurants are protected and are given clear guidance on what to do, get them whatever waivers we can. And we worked very, very hard with the governor and TABC to get the alcohol to go waiver put in place, because that certainly helps them financially. And frankly, I think there were a lot of people that wanted to be able to get their margarita mix and bottles of tequila when they picked up their food, at curbside. So it helps everybody. But outside of that, normally some of the other benefits of membership, we have certainly the networking and being able to have people who are in the same industry as you within your area get together. There are usually monthly gatherings at various different member restaurants. And that's an opportunity to share best practices, talk about what's going on in the community, and really focus more specifically on what's happening in the greater Dallas area. We have events throughout the year. There's for Dallas specifically, a very, very cool event that's done as a fundraiser for scholarships called Food and Fashion. And restaurants pair up with students from various design schools, and literally it is food as fashion. And I can tell you from this year, it's some pretty cool designs as you see the models going down the runway with a skirt made of flank steaks and things like that. It's a lot of fun. Culinary students from around the Dallas area participate in making the food for it. And it's just a fun party, but ultimately it raises the money for scholarships and the work that we do with high school students that are considering a vocational career in the restaurant industry, and get them to where they want to be for college or for their final training. We do a lot with the Dallas Community College, where we have our offices. There's usually, the usual association things like an annual golf outing, et cetera. But one of the other things that the Texas Restaurant Association does is every year we have a food service trade show. And that trade show is called the TRA Marketplace. It's actually the nation's second largest food service trade show and education conference. And it just so happens that this year the marketplace will be in Dallas. So it's we've moved the dates to August. So it'll be August 16th and 17th. But it's a 2.5-day conference of education sessions, a trade show floor that rivals the National Restaurant Association's annual big international restaurant show, just not quite as large. We have a whole beverage pavilion for craft distillers and brewers to highlight Texas product. We also have a Texas grown area for the farmers and cattle ranchers in Texas, so to be able to talk about their product for those that want to do true farm to table. So it's really, as far as an industry event goes, a great opportunity for restaurateurs to be able to sort of see what's coming. And I can say that we're proud and looking forward to the fact that this year we'll be sort of welcoming everyone back to what normal is going to look like after this. And so we're adjusting our education content so that everything from the keynote speech to some of the sessions will focus on, for restaurants, where do we go from here? What do we take and learn from the COVID-19 pandemic and take to make it better for our businesses and really come back stronger than ever before, and also probably a little bit wiser, and nobody could have foreseen this coming, and nobody could have adequately prepared for what this entire situation has done for restaurants. But maybe we can do a few things that moving forward in the future, we're a little bit better prepared.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thanks for telling us about the events coming up, and I'm glad that y'all are still having them, and that is just good news to hear. And the fashion dress and the meat dress, that reminds me of Lady Gaga. I think she had a meat dress, so maybe she started that, and then y'all picked up on it.
There you go.
Cool. I can't wait to see what that looks like. That would be the most interesting runway show I've ever seen with food on.
It's pretty amazing, absolutely amazing to see, and they incorporate packaging and all of that, and it's one of the more entertaining ways to know that you're also doing fundraising for a very good cause.
That's excellent. Yes, for people that want to get into those careers, which maybe more people will be. I mean, as we're stuck at home, I know everybody is cooking more, and I keep hearing how people are actually learning to love cooking. But it's better to go out and eat at a restaurant. So we can all agree on that. It's a treat and it's safer.
Certainly, you don't have to worry about doing the dishes when you go out to eat. That is absolutely true. We're happy to do the cleanup work for you.
I love it. Well, I thank you so much for being with the Texas Restaurant Association and willing to talk to us today about how y'all function and how y'all work with local chapters, and you have an educational foundation and events and awareness. And it's just good to know, yes, of course, you have to have a health inspection and a health license. We have that department at the city, which is a very strict department. And it's just good to know that obviously that's already been going on before. So now it's just at a different level. And then as customers come in, we need to be far more aware of our actions of being exposed to a COVID patient or whatnot are just so important. So curbside delivery makes sense too. So,
absolutely. And I would say the only other ask I would have of customers at this time is to have compassion, grace, and understanding for the restaurants. This is a incredible challenge to have your entire business model upended overnight and just be fighting every single day, not just for the survival of your business, but the welfare of your employees and to get things so that you can reopen, you can welcome back your customers, you can give them a safe environment. And so if it takes a little bit longer to get your order, if something isn't 100% right or some very innocent mistake was made, be graceful and forgiving instead of taking to social media and lambasting the restaurant for making a mistake. This is a period of time where that's how you could give the best support, is to just be understanding, whether that means you had to wait a few extra minutes in your car for the contactless, curbside pickup. Early on, we saw a few people were just going down that social media, I had this bad experience route, and it's incalculable to illustrate for anybody just how much of a challenge this has been. And so if that meant you waited an extra 5 minutes, or they forgot to, hold the mustard, just be forgiving about it right now. Know that things will get back to normal at a certain point in time, but it's on all of us to work together to get through this.
Yes, thank you for saying that. That's such a good point, because they're working with different staffing conditions, and maybe they haven't fully ordered everything. So yes, thank you for reminding us about that. And we do have an Eat in FB, Eat in Farmers Branch campaign going on our Discover Farmers Branch social media website on Facebook. And it has all the restaurateurs. I mean, as soon as they close, we put a list of the restaurateurs on there and just asking people, please consider these places. And as they post their own marketing initiatives, we will repost for them on our site. And we've been doing that now for over a month. And we also started a little cooking show called Cooking with the Council. So we pair a council member with one of our local restaurateurs. And so just like you see a cooking show on Good Morning America, but quite different, because everyone's in their own kitchen. So that's been just kind of fun to give these restaurateurs more face time, and just reminding people, hey, you can do this at home, but doesn't it really taste better if you order it?
Absolutely. Far less likely to have messed something up, burned something in the kitchen. And again, you don't have to do the dishes.
We did have a small fire with our taping yesterday. So again, that's what I mean. It's safer to go out.
Indeed.
Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. And we may reach back out to you at some point in the future just to follow up and see, hey, after a couple months, our patios, like the new place where you really have to take advantage of that real estate now with the social distancing. Now you really need that outdoor space just to have a better blend and spacing. So I bet things will look a little different, but hopefully the thing that does not change is that people still place orders with your local restaurant, just as you did before. Even if you're not going in, you are still going at the same frequency as you did before March. So thank you again. And do you have any questions for us?
No, I just want to say thank you for all that you've been doing, for the fundraising that you've helped push specifically for all of your restaurateurs and Farmers Branch. And I think this has just been, it's been fantastic to see the individual communities recognizing how important those restaurants are to themselves, and to want to see them there. We've heard stories about a few of the closings, and it's sort of jarred people to say, well, I'm never going to have a chance to say goodbye to my favorite server, or to my favorite bartender, or to the owner who I've known since my kids were young. And that's the reality of where we're at. Those restaurants won't come back. But for all the rest, all we can do every day right now to save them, that's what we're focused on, and help them get back to, again, whatever normal is. So working together, we'll get there.
Yep. Well, I know for sure a couple of ours applied for the grant and received it. And one of them, I happened to be at her restaurant doing a takeout order on that Monday that it opened. So I walked her through it, and I know she received the grant, and she was so thankful for it. So every little bit helps. Great. Every little bit helps. But thank you again. I hope you have a good rest of your morning, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Anytime. Happy to do it. Thanks, Allison.
All right, Joe. Good to see you.
You too. Take care.